one, and you're live.
Hello. How are we? Greetings of whatever time of the day it may be where you are. My name is Sheldon Scott, and I am the Director of Culture at Eaton Workshop. And I am, again, very honored and humbled to be bringing to you another panel. Hopefully you all had the opportunity to see our premiere of the No Justice, No Pride film that we premiered earlier today. And three very important people, a part of that conversation and bringing that film to life, are going to be joining us in a moderated conversation this afternoon. But before we get to that, I want to thank you all for joining us during the Another World is Possible Multimedia Festival. I'm very excited to be entering our third day. We have one more day left. And we'll be leaving a little bit more of tidbits around towards the end of this presentation this evening to update you on exactly what's going to be happening for the remainder of the festival. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Katie Petitt, who is not only the Director of Impact at Eaton DC, but also the director of this film, No Justice, No Pride, who will then be introducing us to two of the major characters from that documentary. So, hi, Katie.
Hi, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's my great pleasure and honor to introduce you to the characters of the films No Justice, No Pride. Like Sheldon said, I hope you are able to view it either right after this panel or sometime in the future if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, Emmelia and Tiara, I'm really happy that you're able to be with us this evening. And I'm going to actually allow you to explain who you are and what you do. Tiara, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Tiara Moten. I am the youth coordinator / advocate for No Justice, No Pride. I'm also the youngest senior member of No Justice, No Pride. I'm 19 years old. I'm a dancer. I vogue. I sing a little bit. Bake a little bit. I don't know. I'm just excited that I was able to be a part of a great project like this, and I can't wait to get into a deeper discussion with you all about it.
Hey y'all, I'm Emmelia Talarico. I'm an organizer with No Justice, No Pride. I'm also one of the founding members of No Justice, No Pride. And I'm excited for Jenny to be on it.
Great. Well, it's exciting to have you all here. So I'll just start off with a little bit of a through line. When we did our first opening, we did a film that Eden produced called The Land. And we had a panel, and during that panel discussion, we really had a framework around the concept of home. And one of the points that were made is like oftentimes these oppressive systems try to disrupt the concept of home of the people that they're trying to oppress. And I know with a lot of the work that No Justice has and No Justice, No Pride has done has really been about stabilizing housing for unhoused members of the trans community. And a lot of the work that was focused in this film was basically the struggles and the challenges that you have been faced with. I would love to hear more and share more of the stories about the context, and also kind of an update on like what's happened since the film, and a little bit more context and history on like why No Justice, No Pride is an essential organization doing critical work that obviously was not getting done before.
Well,
Okay. Rant warning. um, I feel like. Oh, I'm sorry, Tepper. Go ahead.
well, with me, as far as the film goes, I was staying in the No Justice. No Pride houses. Excuse me. Was she okay?
So I guess, Tiara, can you just, until I think Em might need to restart or whatever, if you don't mind just sharing your part of the story narrative and your update with us while we get that addressed?
Okay, well, like I was saying, as far as me, I was staying in the No Justice, No Pride, well, one of the No Justice, No Pride houses because we do have multiple. And at the time, I think we only had one house. It was still like we just moved to a different house. Like we was still all these girls in one house, and we were trying to think of like other ways that we could help our community. And me and my twin Tracy, we had came to Emmelia and we were like, what about housing? Like, what if we started like opening houses up for the girls and like so that we have places to go, like so that they have a safe place to stay. And Emmelia was just telling us, she was like, that's a big responsibility to take on. And we were like, well, you taught us this much, like we got time now. Like, come on, you can just give it to us. Like, just let us do it. Let's just at least try with like one house and then open like 2 houses and see what happens. Now we have all these houses open for girls to come and stay, especially in times like this when it's getting cold outside and there's really nowhere for no one to go, or you actually like you get put out or whatever the case may be. But like now I feel like, because I've moved out of the house, I'm now in my own place. Right now I'm in one of the houses right now. I'm in one of the houses, but I have my own place. And it just feels kind of weird because that's when you talk about like the whole aspect of home. It felt like home because when I got released from juvenile detention, my mom didn't want to take me home. She was like, no, you're not coming with me. And Emmelia was the one that took me home with her. So I had to like get comfortable, you know, and adjust like everybody does. But it was so easy because everybody like knew what I was going through. Everybody could relate to how I was feeling. Everybody was like, oh, I've been there before, or I've always been afraid for that to happen to me. Like, in some way, we were always on the same page. And it made me feel comfortable. And that's what we've been trying to do for a lot of the girls that are now staying in the houses now. Try to make them feel comfortable and safe and just try our best to, you know, just make it great while we can.
Yeah. And Emmelia, I don't know if you're back yet, but you made a very salient point in the film about, you know, with intersectional identities, there are multitudes of challenges that are, just can't be addressed in one way. And I know that traditional systems of outreach often have, a singular focus. But, when you talked about stepping up and saying making one less problem by providing a stable house, a stable home, um, for like these populations, these communities, I think that just could not be a more resounded point. Can you share a little bit about the inspiration and the history of getting to that point and that realization that's just a critical part of this before anything could happen?
Yeah, I can. And I'm sorry for the computer issues there. Uh, I've been organizing at this point in my life for most of my life, and for most of my life, I was the only trans woman in most of those organizing spaces. And I knew from my own experiences that was a huge problem with the issues that I've been organizing around, like from union organizing, labor organizing, to immigrant rights organizing, tenant rights organizing. Um, like these communities never are represented in these movement spaces that I was in for all these years. And part of this is oftentimes in the movement spaces, you find a lot of people who have like reached like I don't want to say like a point or something, but like they're in their own personal lives, like they have reached some semblance of stability that they can think outside of like, how am I eating tonight, where am I sleeping tonight, and like um so like part of me is like, part of the reason why a lot of trans women aren't in these spaces is because like they don't have time to be in these spaces. They're out there. The other part of the realization was with my own housing instability, going through like my teens and my 20s, and like, I went from being like a homeless youth thrust into a youth movement without even having my own housing figured out. And the entire time, like, like I'm fighting for other people not to lose their homes when I didn't even have a home. And like, it was just like, yeah, I feel like it's not just fighting, like doing organizing, trying to fight for rights, trying to like fight for change. It's not just fighting. It has to be about caring too. It has to be about making sure that we have the resources, like, so that we could even be in the fight to begin with. Um and so like that was a huge like a big part of like my whole experience. That, and like when I was younger, like I was doing sex work, and I saw like, I saw how many people who were like trans women like me out there, and like I knew there was a lot of people out there. So like knowing that like it's not the fact that like, oh well, maybe we just can't find no trans women to be part of our groups, or we can't find no black and brown trans people to be part of this group. It's like, no, it's like it's a lot more nuanced and deeper than that. And when like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like when we're fighting for our communities, like we need to know all of our communities, and not having like that whole part of the community in a lot of these movement spaces I was in was like really hard for me. And so that I feel like really led me down to this path of like, no, we got to make sure that everyone's got like some amount of resources to be able to do this.
Emmelia and I met at a protest, the J20 inauguration protest of Donald Trump, and I've been struck since then, that was what, now almost 4 years ago, about her ability to, as she just said, like hold movement work and like deep care of the trans community together, and to see kind of No Justice, No Pride go from the spring or summer of 2017 to where it is today has been really beautiful, because you can see her compassion and her brilliance and in this like vision. In the last panel we talked about another world is possible and how Halim was able to do that for himself. And I think what Emmelia brings to the movement community of DC is visioning another world for not just herself, but her whole community. And that's the movement community, and that's the trans community. And No Justice, No Pride is really the outpouring of that, and it's where it's come even since this film has been really beautiful and powerful and important. Like the amount of people that No Justice, No Pride has housed, and not just given a house, but as Tiara said, a place to call home and to feel like this belongs to me because everyone here understands what I'm going through. It's been really beautiful to watch and really powerful, and some of the best organizing I've seen in the country.
So I was just about to get to you, Katie, and ask about like your experience with actually deciding to put this narrative in a filmic space, and what are the very important considerations that you and Emmelia and Sean work with you on this film too, correct? Put together and saying like, these are the stories that we want to get behind and to tell. Can you share a little bit about that narrative and that process?
Yeah, sure. I think, as an organizer myself, it was really important that Emmelia and Tiara were a part of the narrative creation, and something that all of us in a part of this team wanted to get across was the importance of joy in our movements. And so much of the beautiful organizing that Tiara does is around dance and around the ball and the Vogue scene. And Emmelia also highlights this in the work that she does. So like, how can we get across that like the work that No Justice, No Pride is really important because it provides housing to trans folks in Washington, D.C., but it also gives a space where people can be their whole full selves and be joyous and be free and be creative. And so that narrative process, the process of creating this film really came from the group of us wanting to push forward a more complex narrative of what organizing and what movement work is, and to show it as something that can include all parts of us, and include the creative and joyous parts of ourselves as well.
Yeah, Emmelia, you were very intentional about that in the film when you were talking about the ball that you all held. And, I think, Adrienne Marie Brown was here last year and she talked about pleasure activism. And, and I think a lot of what we're realizing now in this world of activism and organizing is that self-care is way more critical and important to our practices. And you seem to incorporate that into No Justice, No Pride very intentionally. Can you talk about like how you got to that space and and how that ended up being such an important part of your practice in that work?
I think honestly, the extraordinary amount of trauma that I've seen Black trans women endure is like, it's impossible not to include joy in our work. Like, we have to include joy in our work. Like, girls are getting killed out there, and it's like it's like if we don't include joy in this work, it's just like one more transactional thing, like in a whole series of yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, you definitely talk about, yeah, you said it when you said how critical joy is to that practice.
Yeah. Like we need spaces to heal. We need spaces to be able to recover. Like it's really intense out there, you know what I mean? And it's if we're just burning ourselves out going endlessly without any time for like just that essential self practice, and I feel like yeah, I don't know, you start losing sight on what you're doing. You start losing sight in your principles. It's and then like yeah, I mean, you want to put care into this work. You don't want to like just be going into this without yeah.
Katie actually mentioned your care, and I think that's a good, very important point to remind ourselves of, the amount of care that you bring into the work. We all appreciate that. And something else I would love to like get that out there as a discussion. For I think a lot of people, both inside and outside of like the broader LGBTQ community, have a really tough understanding of like the desperate communities that live within that space. I think that there's a bit of an understanding that people think they have when they talk about LGBTQ communities. And as a cis Black gay man who moved up to Washington, D.C. 20 years ago and got involved in activism, a lot of what you mentioned is something that I realized. Like, I was on the board of the Youth Pride Alliance for like 6 years, and we didn't have a trans board member at that time, and there were so many of the youth trans community that were coming, even though like we weren't like a full service organization. We just did the Youth Pride once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the board, the board was very cis, and I think that's before cis became a real good understanding. But like we all looked like assimilating gay people, who would pass and who definitely didn't have a lot of the challenges that particularly trans youth of color were having in the city. And then it just opened up a void to me of like how in all these organizations, these big decision making organizations, where we lack that. And I think that's where the value of the No Justice, No Pride work is. Would you mind sharing with the audience and imparting with the audience, like in the assumption of ignorance, like why it is so critical to have like No Justice, No Pride be a stronger, more vocal part of the explaining and understanding of communities as we move forward, and we talk about critical communities that need support.
Well, I will start this by saying in the last 3 decades, there has been, well, particularly the last 9 years, there has been a giant influx of funding that has gone into LGBT organizations for the benefit of trans communities, for helping trans communities. And a recent survey found over the last decade that only 3 pennies for every $100 that was donated, that came from a foundation, actually made it to trans communities. And so, like it's a huge philanthropy issue to begin with. Is like you don't have a lot of stable trans organizations out there. They're not funded. Most of the big philanthropical money goes to more mainstream, more known LGBT organizations, like for example, HRC. And what this does is it deprives a critical community of critical cultural services. You don't have organizations or services out there that are like culturally competent because they're not led by trans people. They're not decided or funded by trans people. And this is still the case even in DC till today. Like, for example, the recent trans survey the city put out for employment, like they reached out to a bunch of trans folks for feedback and stuff, but like that wasn't like, Tira, what'd you think of that survey? They put $50,000 into that survey to figure out why trans employment was still an issue instead of just hiring trans people.
My whole problem with the essay, the reason why, because we had to like look over the essay and stuff. The reason why I had a problem with the essay, I would say, because I don't want to speak for nobody else, but y'all can go ahead and quote me. I have a problem with the essay because how you gonna ask me, a trans woman, what's wrong with why y'all not employing me? That don't make no sense. I don't know why you're not employing me. Don't ask me that. That's just gonna make me mad. Like that's not fair. I don't see how you put so much money and so much effort into asking me why you won't do something. Like I don't tell you what to do. Why won't you hire me? Like we should be giving you the survey. What's the problem? What's the situation? I'm not understanding. That's why I had no parts of the survey. I didn't like it, and my name would never be part of that. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and so like it's just like you have like organizations like that get a lot of funding to serve trans communities or to come up with solutions for trans communities that often aren't based in the trans communities, and then like it's like most of the time we're just asked for our opinion after the fact, and it's like that's part of the system that we're trying to disrupt right now. We take like a lot of deep inspiration from the Black Panther Party, and a lot of their methodology was like, while we're fighting, we're like taking care. While we're fighting, we're caring for the community. Like, it's like, for multiple reasons. Like one, like we need to be doing it. We need to be taking care of each other. But two, like, when we disrupted Pride, because we didn't think that killer cops should be marching for Pride. We didn't think that the FBI and the Bureau of Prisons should be marching for Pride. They said, well, what do y'all even do for the community? Well, we're out housing every single organization in the city for the community. What are you doing for the community?
To talk a little bit about where you are right now. TR, you mentioned that there are multiple houses right now. How many houses do you have right now? And in very general, like how many people are you actually housing? You don't have to be specific.
It's a few houses with a lot of people. Oh, 5 houses. It's 5 houses. As far as people, I know, like, it's more than that. It's like we try, since we're trying to just like help like as many people as possible, especially since it's getting cold. Like houses are getting overstocked, or I don't even want to say overstocked, but like overwhelming. Like it's a lot of people starting to be in houses and things, but we're trying to work that out, trying to get everything stretched out so that we can get more houses, so we can have more people in warm beds and not each other's beds. Like,
Chi just looked at a 6 house today.
We usually come like it's never get in the house. I will say that as for as long as we've been doing this, it's never been get in the house. It's been being in the house, dealing with everybody that lives around the house. Like we've never had problems within the house. Yeah. Like we never had a problem purchasing the house. It was always other people who had problems. Yep. So like,
that was perfect. That's the point that I really wanted to get at to, is like the sustainability. And I think some of the issues that came up during the film was like, the neighborhood. And, I've only been in DC now for 20 years, but I've definitely seen it. I've lived in Columbia Heights and Shaw, and now I'm back on U Street. The neighbors, and I hate to say it this way, but the newcomers are always a challenge. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how you all have been meeting those challenges, and what some of those challenges look like. And then also, if you can finish off with that, with adding how, as a community, the people who are watching this can support you all in that work.
Okay. Well, me personally, I'm only speaking on me because I don't speak for everybody. Me personally, we've had I've been in a few of the houses. I've been in since like what we call A1 Day 1, which is the house Columbia Heights. Like if you weren't at that house, you're not an OG. You're not OG if you weren't at that house. That's what we all say. You cannot be an OG if you were not at that house. So like just like there, like the lady, there was someone that was like living under us, and she was like evil. Like she was just so evil. Like she would blast her music on a weekend and we'd have no problem, because since she's blasting her music, we can blast our music. And that's the times we would take to practice like our voguing and stuff. So when she's blasting her music, we blast our music. But on Saturday, because she's ready to go to bed at 3:00 in the morning on Saturday, we have to cut our music off because we started at 1. You've been playing your music since 7 in the afternoon. Like, she just would get so mad and get so irate. And we would just be like, what is the problem? Like, you was just been rocking out with kissing them. Like, you can't let us listen to our little Vogue beats. Like, the music, like, people would just be walking through the house, or the music might be playing on the TV because we're cleaning. And she'll be banging on the floor because our floor is her roof. So she's like banging. And we're like that, it was just like, it just didn't make sense to me as to why she was so mad. So when we moved from there, we no longer really had a problem with the neighbors. Now we have a problem with the trash people. Why? Why are you not picking up my trash when everybody else's trash is being picked up? For what? You don't even know who live here. You don't even see us take out the trash.
Yep. And there also been times too, and not to cut you off, but where the police have been. There was a point in the movie where like the people have tried to have the police intervene on whatever they interpreted was happening to the house. Because I think that also makes it very clear too how like we have to understand, we have to be way more critical about the relationship to organized police and and government sanctioned employees, because it is it's a tool of the system, it's a tool of oppression, and I know that you all have some experiences with that as well too, and that's a relationship that people need to understand. Like police being called on these communities for who knows what. You can share some of those examples as well too.
Practice. The police was called on us because we were practicing.
They called the fire department that day when they're grilling.
Oh my! We were just grilling.
They told Orlando we burned the house down.
You could clearly see that we are grilling. Like you can see us outside, and like I seen smoke. So you mean to tell me you seen smoke, but you didn't see these 3 trans girls with these neon pink and yellow and green outfits on? Yeah, we was dressing real trashy back then. It was real bad. It was real bad back then. Like, but how you don't see us with all these colors and patterns on, but you see this small, the grill was like this big. Like, you just, like, they called the police on us for grilling, for other people harassing us. Like,
every time they would always come so deep. But you know what? One time there was an attack on the house, and one of the girls got scared, and she called the police, and it took them like an hour to get there. It was only 2 cops. But like there was one time that there was a mental health crisis going on at the house, and they literally had like 20 police cars up and down the street, claiming that like the dispatch call was for a stabbing.
Wow. You know, and
Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, you know, both your and Tiara's response to this, I'd see like, you know, you bring a lot of levity to the situation, but, you know, I think what we need to impart on people who might not understand is like, these are beyond microaggressions and they're incredibly taxing and they're, you know, and it just, again, like, you know, the concept
we still deal with them to this day. We still deal with them to this day, even with landlords and everything. Like one of the landlords that we rent 3 houses from, like on one location, like she's been doing construction work for a month. On another location, the ceiling fell on one of the people and the downstairs neighbors keeps calling the cops on them. Like these are, you know what I mean? These are still situations that we're dealing with. Like 2 years after this movie, we still are dealing with the same exact things. We might not have spotlights pointing at our houses, but
there's a hole. There's a hole. Not a crack, a hole in the roof of my old bedroom. And it's been there since I've been here. And I came here I left like late October. Like it's December now. And they haven't touched the ceiling once. Not even came to look at it. Like,
and so we at this point, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
I ain't got nothing else to say, girl. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of her. You know, I'm tired of her.
Yeah, I'm tired of her too. We've been working on this vision for a couple of years now about taking over land and just having our own property. Not empowering landlords with money that we're raising for Black and brown trans women. And this year, like it's gonna be our major thing that we're gonna be working on is like getting land and building permanent housing on it, whether it's via land trust or the main thing that we're thinking about is forming a developer nonprofit and getting affordable housing, because like if you have these developers that are hijacking these funds to build fucking condos that aren't affordable, why can't we take it and build free housing with it?
Yep.
And so we're going to take it and we're going to build free housing with it, and below that free housing is going to be free business properties for the girls to start businesses at if they want to start businesses, so then they don't have to worry about startup funding.
I got a dance studio.
Okay. It sounds like there's a call to action in there, Em. Like, can you tell us what we should be doing? It sounds like that was a perfect intro.
Okay, well, we've been working on this vision and we're ready to fight for it. A free housing guarantee for our community, a free food guarantee for our community members, places to birth Black trans entrepreneurship. If y'all want to support that vision, you can go to nojusticenopride.org/the-village. That's nojusticenopride.org/the-village. I might make a redirect that is like the village, because
Okay.
that's kind of confusing saying it, but
So we got, and we'll make sure that we make sure the communities actually get that. You know, I know it's in the film, but we also attach it to this too, because this will be living in perpetuity on the website as well too. So I just want to thank you to both for all of your generosity and like everything that you've been sharing with Eaton in its communities over the last 2 years since the making of this film. And really thanking you both for really showing us what another world is possible, looks like in action. Because if there's anything that can be said is like you all have done tremendous work in imagining and creating another world for yourselves. And we're just happy to be witness to that, and humble to figure out where we can continue to support your work and your vision moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie and let her do the final goodbyes. But, also very nice meeting the both of you for the first time formally, and looking forward to our continued work in the future. And thank you for, allowing us to, work with you and support you, because I know that there's all kinds of challenges around who you work with and how you work with them. And we want to continue to be good partners and honor your work. So thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo what Sheldon said. And, as the impact director here at DC, this is exactly the kind of partnership we want to be continuing into 2021 and into the future. Like, how can we work together with amazing grassroots organizations who are doing the work day to day, who are visioning another world, who are coming up with ideas like housing trans folks because it needs to happen, and putting on balls because that needs to happen, and building out a trans village because that needs to happen. How can we work to support your group and groups like yours moving forward, and use media and art and event space to tell those stories and to work collaboratively. So I know we're going to continue to work together, and yeah, I just really, really appreciate and value both of you and all you do for DC.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Love
Thank
you.
you, Sheldon.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank y'all for having us on.
So everyone who's watching at home, you can join us for our third and final panel for tonight. It will start at 9 o'clock, and it will feature a collection of really amazing activists from Argentina. So stay tuned and join us in a few minutes. Have a good night.
Oh.
Yay, good job, y'all. That was awesome.
Yay.
Yay.